For this episode of the Ear Scouts podcast, we're going inside the fabled Disney bubble to find out, is it worth paying more to stay at an official Walt Disney World Resort hotel? Plus, we're answering your questions from YouTube and Patreon and catching up on the latest Disney Parks news. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. Hi-ho, everybody. This is Rob with Ear Scouts coming to you from our makeshift studio here in Celebration, Florida. Welcome to episode 3 of the Ear Scouts podcast, where we gather around the virtual campfire to talk about Disney World and Disney parks around the world. I'm here just outside the Disney bubble in Celebration with the other half of Ear Scouts, Eric. Hi-ho, Eric.
Hi-ho, everyone.
Eric is going to be keeping up with the live chat over on Patreon. If you'd like to join us live as we record each episode and gain access to our exclusive Patreon after party, head on over to patreon.com/earscouts. I'm also here with Jessica, who is one of our wonderful Ear Scouts moderators and the host of the scrapbooking channel, Jessica Scraps, over on YouTube. Hi-ho, Jessica.
Hi-ho. I am back from a wonderful 5-night stay in Walt Disney World. So it's been great, and I'm excited to be home, but looking forward to my next trip.
Awesome. Also with us is our resident Disney trivia whiz and moderator, Quizmaster Craig. Hi-ho, Craig.
Hi-ho, gentle listeners.
Well, let's kick things off with our virtual campfire chat. Jessica, why don't you get the conversation going this week?
So one of the things that we noticed while we were at Disney World is because the season is changing, so are the parade times and the firework times. And there were multiple people at the parks that were confused about why the fireworks were at 9:30 instead of 10. And I just want to make everybody aware that Disney does that during the season changes, during daylight savings time. And you need to, not 3 months before, but probably 1 to 2 weeks before, check the calendar. And it's very easily available both in the app and on the computer for the times of both park hours and parades and shows. I know also that both Animal Kingdom and Hollywood Studios had early closures, which is probably key for somebody maybe is using that for a corporate event. That also surprised people, particularly because they couldn't see Fantasmic, because there was no Fantasmic that night. So particularly during our trip last week, the parades and fireworks were later, but I know during August, and I know it's happened in October, you may have different times. So just really ask everyone to check. Don't take it for me that it's 9:30, because it might not be 9:30 when you go. Check the calendars for the park times.
That's a great suggestion. And I'm just going to tack on, those park hours can sometimes change really close to the day. I feel like I've seen at Magic Kingdom get an extra hour the week before the park day. Greg, what do you got for us this week?
Okay, so what I want to talk about is a little bit of rumor and some speculation, but we're going back to the Muppets takeover of the Rock and Roller Coaster. So the rumor is they're developing a new Muppet show, and it's supposedly going back to the original. So I'm guessing it takes place in the theater, variety acts, a guest star, some celebrity. Seth Rogen is attached to it. Again, it's all rumor. But this maybe go back to what I said before about Rock and Roller Coaster, because they're bringing back this character called J.P. Gross, who is Scooter's uncle. And they mentioned that he owned the Muppet Theater, where the original TV show was filmed. I thought nothing of it. It's like, well, yeah, I remember that guy. I remember that character. But the fact that they're bringing him back, and then they mentioned the theater, now they're bringing back the show. Does that lead extra credence to the villain show, that whole theater being taken over by the Muppets and becoming the Muppet Theater?
Yeah. So to catch folks up who didn't listen to our previous episodes, we talked about the fact that maybe there's a theory going around that I personally subscribe to, that maybe the villains show that's currently where Lightning McQueen used to be, which is right next to Rock and Roller Coaster, which is going to be the new Muppets attraction, that maybe once Villains Land opens, they'll move that show out of there. And then we have this great big show space right next door to the Muppets. And wouldn't it be great if Muppet Vision 3D, which they said they're preserving in some way, potentially to bring back for people to experience. So that's the rumor that Greg's referring to, that maybe that's going to happen.
And wouldn't it be awesome to just have like the Muppet Theater right there? So,
I mean, it really could kind of become the Muppet Land eventually, which was always the plan, was that Grand Avenue was going to become a full Muppet Land with not only Muppet Vision 3D and retail and dining. There was going to be an attraction, which now we're going to have with the Rock and Roller Coaster retheme. So I think this might end up all being very good news for Muppet fans, even though it didn't seem that way at the outset.
I mean, I'm excited for a new show too. Gosh, as a kid, I got to watch that every week. It was awesome.
Well, my news this week that I want to share is that we went to check out the Beak and Barrel. And I understand that you also went, Jessica, on your visit.
Yeah, we did. Mom and John and I got to go.
I love the Beak and Barrel. It was a great experience. I actually enjoyed most of the food. There was a seafood item I didn't particularly love, but that's more to do with me than the item probably. But I think the other items, other than the seafood item, we really enjoyed their version of kind of like it's almost like a bread service. And then there were these two kind of like corn cakes that had whole corn, and then they each had a filling. One was a vegetarian filling, the other was a seasoned chicken filling. I really enjoyed the food that wasn't the seafood. Personally, I thought it was, for Magic Kingdom standards, I thought it was actually pretty good. My problem, though, with it was you have a very limited amount of time in there. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I think when you go, my recommendation is to not over order. We ordered everything on the menu, and it felt like a mad dash to sort of scarf it all down and take in the experience of the place, because that's the real magic of Beak and Barrel. The food was fine. It was good. The drinks that we tried were pretty good, but it was the experience and the ambiance and the shows that are happening. I mean, essentially there are some little mini shows that take place all around you, and the bartender and the servers are all, involved in the show. And there's an animatronic of a parrot that is really cool to interact with. I would just say, don't go crazy ordering. Get maybe one or two things and plan to enjoy your time experiencing Beak and Barrel rather than trying everything on the menu. Eric, did you want to jump in on that?
Yes, actually, someone is asking, like, if you can go a little bit deeper about like the 45-minute time limit.
Yeah, so basically from the moment you're seated, they put on your check when you are seated, and they're being pretty strict about it. I mean, if you get close to that 45 minutes, they're going to come over and remind you that your time is almost done and get you to pay the check and get ready to get out the door. So it definitely did feel kind of rushed to me, especially towards the end. We had a lot of food left, and they were like, oh, by the way, you've got, 8 minutes to eat all that food. So if I had it to do over again, I would budget my time differently.
So we had a similar experience in that when we sat down, they told us 45 minutes. But I think because we did only have the chips and dips and the dessert, which Rob didn't talk about, but the cake pop, just get it. Just get the cake pop. And that's all we had. But we had those two things and then drinks. So we were kind of ready at 45 minutes. Like it wasn't. So I think that might be the difference, is you need to assume you're just there to drink and maybe like treat it like a bar, not like a restaurant kind of a thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we jump into the Disney bubble, I do have some quick Ear Scouts news to share. I've actually been out of town visiting family, so that's why there's been a little bit of a lull over on the YouTube channel. But we have several videos that are nearly finished, so those are going to start popping up in the next day or so. First up is going to be our initial video in a series of videos about food and wine over at Epcot, and that one is extra cheesy. I may even sing for a bit in that video if I don't check it out and edit it out at the last minute. But as it stands now, there is a moment of me singing. We've also got the long-awaited Epcot International Gateway early entry video and the 70th anniversary video from Disneyland. So stay tuned for all of that over on the YouTube channel. And for our friends on Patreon, you'll be getting an early look at our first ever Disney cruise. We're headed out on a Halloween on the High Seas adventure on the Disney Magic, and we'll have a daily blog of our journey over on Patreon. I wanted to do a vlog, like a video, but from what I hear, the internet on the ship leaves something to be desired. So I think it's probably going to have to be photos and a blog, but we are going to keep you guys up to date as we take this first ever Disney cruise. And we'll also be giving all of you a sneak peek at the videos that will be coming soon to the main YouTube channel all about our cruise adventure. But for right now, it is time for Pressed Penny for Your Thoughts, where we take a deep dive on a particular topic or question. And this week is all about the Disney bubble. If you've never heard that term, it basically refers to the experience of having your entire vacation within Walt Disney World. Contrary to popular belief, the Disney bubble is not, in fact, a giant dome that covers the parks and allows a Mickey to control the weather and to keep out the mosquitoes. You would be shocked. There are people who actually believe that the weather is controlled at Walt Disney World. Not true.
I'm sure they would love it if they could.
For sure. They do a pretty good job of keeping the mosquitoes out, though. I'm going to give them credit for that.
Amen.
It's pretty impressive. There is no magic weather controlling dome, but the magic of letting Disney handle everything from your hotel to transportation to your dining, that is what we're referring to as the Disney bubble. And that can sometimes come with a hefty price tag. So today we're talking about whether that price is worth it. And we've done some research to give you an idea of what that price is. Jessica, why don't you tell everyone about our imaginary vacation that we've been pricing out?
No problem. So we are pricing out a family of 4, so 2 adults and 2 children. And then we are pricing May 14th through May 18th. So we picked a non-holiday for kind of a weekend, a long weekend. So that's what we decided to price. So we started, and I decided my imaginary family that I have made up in my head and I love dearly are going to start their vacation just like I would start any vacation, and they would go to whatever hotel chain they are affiliated with, and they would start there. So I'm going to give you some prices for Hiltons and Marriotts, and they're about the same. But what I decided to do was split them up into the same categories that we have for Disney hotel properties. So we're going to start with the value. So there's a value hotel at either a Hilton or a Marriott. So you're looking at the Hampton Inn or the Fairfield Inn. And if you go to a Hampton or a Fairfield, you're within 3 miles of property. You have a shuttle to the property. And in some cases, you can get these even through the Walt Disney World website. So, I mean, you can order them there. They are between $450 and $500 for that 4 nights. So let's just say $500. You can have your family of 4 stay at a value property at a Hilton or a Hampton. So then let's go to moderate.
A Hilton or a Marriott.
I'm sorry, Hilton or a Marriott. Yes, Hilton or a Marriott. So then let's go to a moderate. So the moderate is more like the Town Place Suites. Now, I will tell you, this is where I stayed when we went on our girls' trip last year. So I'm familiar with this location, and you get a 2-bedroom suite. So now mom and dad and the kids do not have to stay in the same room. You still have 1 bathroom, but it's more of a 2-bedroom suite. So think of this as the bigger rooms at the Art of Animation, where you have a little bit bigger room. And that's going to be about $900. So 2 bedrooms, you still get the shuttle, you still get free breakfast. So that's pretty reasonable. That's a moderate. Then there's also the deluxe level for both of these chains. Now, the deluxe level comes with, humorously, as you go to deluxe, you get no breakfast. I've always found that to be funny. You get no breakfast, but you get a much better facility. You get bigger pools. The Signia, which is Hilton's kind of, is the one that I looked at, has a pool with a lazy river and a big pool, and it's got big rooms, and it looks very, very deluxe. And that's going to be $1,600. So $400 a night. So basically we've gone
now,
from...
is that one going to be a suite, or is that just a regular
That's just
traditional
two
room?
queen beds, two queen beds, but you're getting the benefit of a much plusher place. So 500, 900, 1,600 is basically what you're looking at. And, I think to me, the delta is for $500, I'm getting free breakfast and a shuttle, and I could lump it with a package on the site, on the Disney site. So just bear that in mind.
Is that going to include parking? If you have a car, do you have to pay extra for parking at those?
Both the Fairfield and the Hampton included parking because they're, once again, the higher up you go, the less likely they are to include parking. So when you get to the actual Hilton, when you get to the Signia, when you get to the Swan and Dolphin, you have to pay for parking. So parking was included in the moderate and in the value. Okay.
So it sounds like you could get a pretty decent place to stay that's pretty close to the parks for about $500. If your goal was to save money and do your Disney trip in a more affordable way, $500, that's not too bad for your hotel.
I did want to say one extra thing. So let's say my pretend family is actually two teenagers, and it's a teenage girl and a teenage boy. Let's name them Jesse and Dave. They could be like me and my brother. And let's say they would not sleep in the same room. You could get an Airbnb that had 3 bedrooms for around $700 and $900, depending on the Airbnb. And also do that as well. Some people are huge believers in Airbnb. So I did want to put that out there as an option. They, however, are much farther from the parks. We're talking sometimes 30, 40 minutes from the parks. There are very few what I would call affordable Airbnbs close to the park. But if you don't mind a 30, 40-minute drive, you definitely have to rent a car with those. 700 was about the average I saw for that, a little bit more than the value, but you get most of the time a pool and more bedrooms and more space.
I think that the Airbnbs are great for longer visits too. I think if you're planning to stay for a week or more, that's when Airbnbs start to become a really good value in comparison to, those hotel nights add up pretty fast. And there's usually a weekly rate that's not too terrible with the Airbnbs. But like you said, with Airbnb, you're driving, you're going to possibly be driving a fair distance. And there's also a chance you have to get on I-4, which, as someone who lives here in Orlando, I will go to great lengths to avoid having to get on I-4. I literally moved where I moved because it meant I could get into Disney World without going onto I-4. So you are going to have to deal with some pretty awful traffic a lot of times if you go the Airbnb route. Craig, you looked at this same family. They're staying on Disney property in your scenario, and you're going to take us through their options and what it's going to cost for that same time period, right?
I am. I've got some information here. Now, again, this is the same weekend. This is May 14th through the 18th, family of 4, starting with the value resorts. And I'm just going with like the cheapest option, which is All-Star Sports, and you can get that for $862 for those 4 nights. And that includes everything. That's the taxes, any kind of fees. That also includes your transportation, of course. There's a lot of other perks that we will get into later as well. And then for the moderates, the cheapest one available is at Port Orleans French Quarter for about $1,458.
Wow.
For the 4 nights. Now, we did not include the exclusive DVC resorts, or I did not include in these numbers, things like Old Key West, Saratoga Springs, Riviera.
I'm going to cover those.
Discounting all of those, the cheapest deluxe you could get for those 4 nights was at Animal Kingdom Lodge. And again, a standard room, no Savannah View. And that came out to about $2,550.
Wow.
Yeah. And
for 4 nights.
For 4 nights. and the Grand Floridian, which is the highest end, is $38.36 for
That's
a standard room for 4 nights. Yep.
Wow. So obviously at Disney and the resorts that Jessica was mentioning as well, there's a big range, right? You can stay inexpensively, but since we're talking in this show about whether or not it's worth it to stay inside the Disney bubble, I think we're going to keep to sort of the value end of things. So, folks who are trying to save money and still get that Disney experience. So it sounds like, would you say about $350 more for the 4 days to stay at the least expensive Disney resort? It sounds what it's sounding like so far, right?
Yeah. Like 162 technically, but yeah. And that's at All Star Sports.
Yeah, which I'll be honest, All Star Sports is easily my least favorite value resort. But you did look and see you could do All Star Music or movies, which I personally think are better options for only like, what was it, like a very little more, right?
Oh, yeah. We're talking a few dollars more for less than $10, I think, between all the 3 All-Stars. So, and that's pretty, and there was a lot of that too. Like both Port Orleans, Riverside, and French Quarter were the same. Caribbean Beach wasn't that much more. The only thing that really got significantly higher was Grand Destino Tower in the moderate range.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that really becomes almost like a deluxe resort at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had homework as well. I looked at the costs for renting DVC points over that same 4-night period. I've done this in the past, and it's a great way to stay in a deluxe resort and save a little money. But I would say it's important, if you're going to go this route, you want to go through a reputable vendor like David's Vacation Club Rentals or DVC Rental Store. And what they do is they connect you with a Disney Vacation Club owner who maybe has some points to spare, and they're choosing to rent out those points to you so you can book a room instead of using it for themselves. And to give you an idea of how much that can save you, the least expensive option for our imaginary vacation came in at $1,050 for a standard room with 2 queen beds at Old Key West. So what was the value number again, Craig?
For All Stars, it was like $850.
Yeah. So I would say $200 is definitely worth it to go from All Star Sports to Old Key West. That's a pretty huge jump. And that includes all the taxes. There's no added up charges for parking or resort fees. That's the price. It's $1,050. If you wanted to upgrade to a fancier resort, you could do Animal Kingdom Lodge for that same period for $1,250. Yeah, I know. It's like half the price. And
literally half the price.
Yeah.
For the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you may have heard people talking about renting points. This is what they're talking about. This is why so many people recommend doing it. Eric, did you have something to add from the Patreon chat?
So they were asking the amount that you're giving, Craig, that's not including any Disney promos, does it?
No. Yeah, this is total. Sorry, should have been clear. This is total rack rate. There are discounts available sometimes as Disney, wants to put them out. Past discounts you get. Sometimes they do like summer discounts for the general public. And remember, Disney also does dynamic pricing. While I was doing this research, the prices literally changed as I was typing in things and went back to check on something else. And then that price had changed. So when they say it's dynamic pricing, it's very dynamic. It can literally change like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, though, that with Disney, and I think you were doing the same, though, Jessica, correct? You were looking at rack rates, and there are
discounts.
Promotions. Yeah. So with DVC rentals, which I'm talking about, there are also some discounts that you can find, believe it or not, but they're trickier. Usually the way that you find deeper discounts with DVC rentals is when you find someone who has an existing reservation. So they've already booked the days that they've booked, and for whatever reason, they can't use that reservation anymore. Sometimes they'll put that out there as like a fire sale. They'll make it even cheaper than the kind of numbers that I'm talking about. But the catch is it's really difficult to find something like that that's going to fit in your vacation plans. I would check when I'm looking, see if there's an existing reservation that lines up with when you're coming, because that could save you some money or get you in a better space than you would have been in for the same price. Definitely you want to look at DVC rental as an option if you're planning to go for a deluxe resort and you're not finding a good value on the Disney website with their current promotions.
Yep. One thing I will say that when you asked that question is the other thing I didn't assume was that you had Marriott points or Hilton points. When we stayed at the Town Place Suites, my mom got the entire room for free using her Marriott points. So one of the perks, and we're going to talk about perks of staying in the bubble, but one of the perks of staying at a chain like Marriott or Hilton is that if you have saved up your points either through credit card or travel, you may actually get it for less than what I quoted, because you might be able to use points. So just that is part of the reason why people tend to do that.
Yeah. And I'd like to throw in, we already brought up the Swan and Dolphin, which is in the Epcot resort area. Fantastic location, like walking distance to Epcot, walking distance to the Skyliner. It has its own bus transportation, but these are Marriott hotels. So if you do have Marriott points, you can stay there. And the rack rate for the Dolphin was $1,800 for those 4 nights versus the $1,600 for the Hilton Signia.
Mm-hmm.
But you can literally walk to Epcot and Hollywood Studios. So I think Swan and Dolphin are just hidden gems.
We're going to talk about this a little bit later. I do think that there's something special that's worth mentioning about Swan and Dolphin and Swan Reserve. Those do have some access to Disney transportation. You can take the water transportation from that's essentially the Disney water transportation from those resorts, which is a really nice perk. As you said, you can walk to Hollywood Studios. It's a hike, but it's definitely doable, and you can walk to Epcot from there. But this is a big thing that I think people need to understand about most of these off-property resorts. They will advertise that they have a shuttle, and they do typically have shuttles if they advertise it, but the schedule of that shuttle, I can just tell you right now, is almost certainly not going to line up with the timing that you're going to want to go and come from the parks. I would not say that you should count on transportation at these other off-property hotels in the same way that you would on-property Disney transportation, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But I would say the Swan and Dolphin are kind of an exception to that because they do have more access to Disney transportation than the others.
Yeah, very unique.
Yeah, you can even walk to the Skyliner. Actually, it's not technically considered a Skyliner resort, but it's right there. So I mean, you're almost as good as being in a Skyliner resort when you do Swan and Dolphin. That kind of brings us into the main discussion that I want to have, which is the Disney bubble is really about the perks and the things that you get for staying at a Disney resort, both ones that are tangible and like listed on the website as perks. And then there's maybe the more intangible things that just a feeling that you get being at a Disney resort. So I just kind of want to go around really quickly and talk about our favorite perks of staying inside the bubble. And to our Patreon family who's joining us, let Eric know in the chat, what are your favorite perks when you stay on property and why you choose to if you do stay on property? And he'll share those with us as well. Craig, why don't you start us off with the basic perks and then maybe some of your favorite intangible perks of staying at a Disney resort?
So some of the things you get when you do stay at a Disney resort, you have early entry every day to all 4 parks, which is a half an hour before posted opening time. And then, of course, the Disney transportation will get you there in time, early enough to truly enjoy that as well. If you're in a deluxe resort, you get extra evening hours, and that's usually twice a week at 2 different parks. Monday and Wednesday in general, it changes a lot. It's usually just Epcot and Magic Kingdom. But that's open an hour after, and I've taken advantage of that, and that is one I do love.
That one is only at the deluxe.
Correct. You have to be staying at a deluxe and or DVC. And you get lightning lane. You get to reserve your lightning lane 7 days in advance of your arrival date. So if our arrival date is May 14th, 7 days before that, we can book all the way to the 18th on the 7th. So that's, 11 days ahead. So that's a great perk to be able to get all your lightning lanes and get what you want. Same with dining. You get 60-day.
So, but anybody can get 60 days. It's the difference is you can do it for the length of your stay, correct?
Right. Yeah. That's how I got into Space 220. I booked it for my last day of a week's long vacation, and I got it.
Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is another one you talk about people all the time who book Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique the last day of their stay because they know they can get it 60 plus those days. That's a huge one.
Yeah. All of them, Cinderella's, GO82, Beak and Barrel, for that matter.
So even though technically, if you were to look at it on paper, it doesn't look like anything special because you could book 60 days out if you're staying off property as well. But what I hear from a lot of people who are staying off property is, I was there at the exact moment that the reservations opened up and there was nothing for Cinderella's Royal Table. There was nothing for Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. And that's because folks who were staying on property, they had 60 days from their check-in day for the entire length of their stay. So those were the folks booking up all those reservations that you weren't able to find. So that even though it doesn't sound like a big difference, it ends up being a pretty big difference.
Yeah, and you have the Disney transportation that's all free and included, access to the dining plan. You can buy your tickets ahead of time as well, have them put in with your package. So yeah, lots of really cool perks, but I think when it comes to the intangibles, there's just nothing like staying there in the bubble, like being on a Seven Seas Lagoon and watching the monorail go by. Even the value resorts have so much fun. There's like so much energy. There's like, if you're really into the Disney characters and bigger than life.
Yeah. I think it's about the theming, but it's also, it's about that sense that your entire vacation is taken care of. You don't need to worry about how am I going to get to the parks and back. Everything is essentially tied together for you, and it makes it a lot, I think, less stressful. And I also just think there's something magical about being able to hop on the Skyliner or a ferry or, even the bus and just go back to your resort hotel really quickly in the middle of the day, kind of take a breather and get back into the parks really easily, it's a lot more complicated to do when you've got to go out to the parking lot and get in your car and drive to a hotel that's off property, and then do the whole thing to come back again. It doesn't sound like it's that different, but trust me, when you're there, you avoid, I think, going back to your hotel when you're off property because it's just such a hassle to get on I-4 and all that, Eric, did you have something from the Patreon?
Not the Patreon, but I just wanted to add what you were talking about, like transportation. Think about the worst case scenario where you stay like super late in the parks. Let's say that you're not staying in a Disney hotel, like you will have to request an Uber in order for you to get back to your resort. In our experience, there's always a way, like a cast member will help you to get back to your own resort.
Yeah. And the one thing we haven't talked about yet is the cast members. I think that to me is the intangible that keeps us coming back. Joe, the bellhop at Bay Lake Tower, is now my favorite human. He greeted us. He helped us with our bags. He told us some jokes. I will always remember, you go to floor 5 to get to floor 4 because that's the magic of Disney. That's what he said when we went to the Bay Lake Tower, is you go to 5 to get to 4. It will stay with me for every time I stay there and not. But those people and the way the cast members react to you, and they have that Disney charm, that Disney customer service. Let me just tell you, I've stayed at the Swan and Dolphin, and the people that work there do not have the same Disney customer service. And there might be lovely humans, but they're not Disney lovely humans. And I think that to me is the intangible that keeps me coming back. There's something special about the people at those resorts. And it's from the people working at the restaurants to the people working in bell service to the people working in the stores. Every one of them was kind and helpful and went out of their way to do what we needed to do. And I've seen that at every resort I've stayed at. And that's a big difference.
1,000%. I've stayed, before we lived here, we came to Disney a lot and stayed in Airbnbs. We stayed in some of the different less expensive hotels that are very close to Disney, in some cases in the Disney Springs area. And I'm not going to say that, the employees at those hotels were perfectly courteous and everything, but you're right. It's a totally different level of service that you get typically at Disney resort hotels that you just don't find unless you're going to stay. I would imagine if you're staying at the Four Seasons, I'm sure you're going to get a similar experience. Well, I will just add some of my favorite things about staying at a Disney resort hotel. Craig, you kind of alluded to this. Every resort has its own identity, its sense of place, and there's a story being told at all of these different resorts. And I love, as someone who lives here, I just go sometimes to these different resorts just to hang out, to go, have a meal, to enjoy the evening, and to be in those environments for an extended period for your vacation. It becomes part of your Disney World experience. I have to say, I never felt that way at any of the off-property hotels I stayed at near Disney. I was never like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get back to the lobby at the Hampton Inn. That was never something that came out of my mouth. But I do really look forward, especially during the holidays. Oh my gosh. I sometimes just take tours. I like to go around, just jump on Disney transportation and go from hotel to hotel to look at what they're doing in their lobbies. It's magical. That is why, for me, I would say it is always worth, especially if you're talking $350 for 4 days, $100 a day. And if your budget doesn't allow for it, that's $300 that you can put somewhere else if you need to. But if you have a budget that allows for it, I would argue that those are $350, $400 very well spent, because it's going to completely transform your vacation experience from beginning to end. And there's not much else you can do for that amount of money that I think does that at Disney World.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, the other wonderful thing about the Disney hotel or resorts is there really is something for everybody. Every interest, every taste level, every, aesthetic.
Yeah, and I think that's just totally true. But also restaurants. There's a restaurant at a Disney hotel that every one of us will like, and it's probably 5 different restaurants, right? You're getting, Mexican, Brazilian, Colombian food at one place, and then you're getting American food at another place and French food at another place. And that's just awesome. I'm going to add on to something you said about the holidays, Rob, which is in the summer this year, they did a ton of characters at the resorts during the summer, during the days for that cool kid summer. That was, we randomly had Pluto come and hug me while I was on a video call with my daughter, just sitting, and everyone else around me knew it was happening because I was at the Riviera and he was standing behind me, and I couldn't figure out why everyone in the room was laughing at me, but Pluto just there, just hanging out. But that was normal. Like, you don't get that other places. You take a midday break, you get to have some character interactions. They've really done a lot to make the hotels more than just a place to sleep at night.
One other really good perk, there's a new perk that you might not have even heard about. If you stay on property at a Disney resort hotel, you can go to one of the 2 water parks for free on your check-in day, which, that's basically, that's a park day that you can add into your visit at no additional charge. That alone is worth, how much is a ticket to the water park? Like $100 probably. Yeah. So, and then it's not just $100, it's $100 per person in your party. You got 4 people staying in that room. That's $400 right there, in savings, because you can do the water park.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do we have anything from Patreon? Anyone have anything to add of why they love staying on property?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people agree with you guys about like the perks of having early entry, but most of it like the Disney vibe. Jennifer like mentioned that she likes to watch Happily Ever After on the resort TV, but most importantly, like also she loves the soap and the lotions, you know, those unique smells from there.
That is huge.
Yes, indeed. I mean, also you, Rob, you forgot about like you were talking about the stories of the hotels, but you forgot about the smells of the hotels, of the
Oh
resorts,
yeah.
because you love those.
Yeah, that's something I always, when I walk into certain hotels, you have so many memories that are tied to your sense of smell. And that's something that Disney figured out before anyone else. And they've learned that they can trigger those good memories that you have by bringing a smell, into the storytelling, and you're going to remember that smell. And when you smell it again, you're just going to get that good vibe all over again. I actually have essential oils that I bought at Disney Springs. They aren't allowed to call them by the resort name, but it'll be like island vibes, and the cast member who's there selling it will let you know that's the smell at Caribbean Beach, and this is the smell at Wilderness Lodge. So you can actually have those and bring them home with you. And I love that. Like sometimes when I'm just feeling stressed out, I'll put on the smell of Wilderness Lodge and I just feel completely relaxed. So, yes, that's a good point, Eric. That's another thing that you wouldn't think about, how much you love the smell of your resort, but at Disney, that is definitely a thing. Um, so anything else from the chat before we go on?
Rob, from this list, for him is very important the safety of gluten-free dining. They are always very careful with that.
Yeah. Disney is second to none when it comes to making sure that people's dietary needs are observed. So there's a lot to love about being inside the Disney bubble, but I'm curious, other than price, can anyone think of any reason you might want to stay outside the bubble? Like, is there a perk that beyond price to staying beyond the Disney bubble? And I'll go first and share that I think there are some resorts like the Four Seasons, which is on Walt Disney World property. And it has a lot of perks, including character dining and early entry, and it is a true luxury hotel. We haven't stayed there yet because it costs a small fortune, but I've heard that it's pretty much the best of the best in terms of service and amenities and the quality of the rooms. I've also heard great things about the new Evermore Resort, which has this massive lagoon that's actually an enormous swimming pool. It's incredible. So I would say that some folks might like the amenities that a certain resort offers that just doesn't exist at Walt Disney World. Margaritaville is another one. If you're a huge Jimmy Buffett fan, maybe you want to have that experience of being inside the Jimmy Buffett bubble for part of your vacation. I'd also say that it can be great to consider a split stay if you're going to do, say, Universal during your vacation. I'm a big proponent. I believe in the Disney bubble. I also think it's great to be inside the Universal bubble for your Universal days, just especially if you can be at one of those resorts where you can take the water transportation. So nice to be able to just take the boat back to your resort in the middle of the day and just get a quick break. So if you're doing both Disney and Universal, you might want to consider a double bubble vacation. What about you, Jessica? I know you often stay off property. What are the things that you like better about being beyond the bubble?
So I'm going to start off by saying if this is your first trip to Disney World, or if you're only a one trip a year person, stay on property, stay in the bubble. But if you're lucky enough that you get to come more often, there are things in Orlando that are really cool. We did a really cool escape room. They have Chuy's, which is my favorite Mexican restaurant chain in the whole wide world. They have really good themed places that have nothing to do with Disney or Universal in Orlando. They've got great breweries. They've got great entertainment, all kinds of things that if you stay off property, you're more likely to experience. Mini golf. There's tons of fun mini golf that's more reasonable than the ones at Disney. So there's lots of things to do. I certainly am a proponent of the first time you go, and if you don't get to go as often as some other of the annual pass people get to go, maybe stay in the bubble. But if you split stay, you could even split stay and do Gatorland. Orlando has a lot to offer beyond Disney and Universal that I think you're more likely to see if you stay off property. Not that you wouldn't see it, but if you're in that Disney bubble, it's real hard to leave. That's how they get us, because it's awesome.
For a moment there, you reminded me of Buddy Dyer, the mayor of Orlando. When if you ever fly
Orlando.
into MCO,
I say the speech.
This is Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer. But yeah, if you ever fly in and out of Orlando, you get the message on the train from Buddy Dyer, who's promoting all the great things there are to see and do in Orlando. And I think you did an even better job than Buddy Dyer himself, Jessica.
Well, I'm coming for his job, man. I'm coming.
So I know, Craig, you're a DVC owner, so you tend to always stay DVC. Do you ever stay outside the bubble when you come?
No, I haven't since this millennium, actually, because we joined in December of 1999. So, and that was the thing that kind of kicked me into it. I mean, and that's a whole nother discussion, is DVC.
So I'm guessing you don't have any contributions to the reasons you should stay off property, because you haven't done it in
not since
25 years.
Not since 1987, I think.
I think we've looked at the bubble from all the angles. Patreon, let us know in the chat. Folks who are listening on the podcast, let us know in the comments over on YouTube. The question is, when you look at the price and the benefits, do you think it's worth it to stay inside the Disney bubble? Craig, start us off. I think I know your answer. Worth it or not worth it?
Well, it is worth it, but I do want to say you can still have a great time if you're not staying in the bubble. You can still have a great vacation. So temper that.
Jessica, do you think inside the bubble or outside the bubble?
Inside. Inside. If it's a Disney vacation, inside.
Yeah. Eric, do we have any early answers on the live chat? Anyone who has given us inside or outside the bubble?
Well, Jennifer just mentioned that she could stay for free at the Hilton timeshare, but she always preferred to stay on property. Or sometimes she does a split stay.
Yeah, I think free is hard to beat. If you've got free, then you should probably go with free. But otherwise, it sounds like pretty unanimous. So you can swing it. You should stay inside the bubble. And now that we have the answer to that question, let's answer your questions from YouTube and Patreon. Eric, why don't you start us off? Do you have any questions from the live chat that we've gotten so far?
Yeah, the most important question that I got was related to one of your statements, Jessica.
Oh dear.
That was made by Ray and Lauren. Does Eric think that Chuy's really constitutes authentic Mexican food?
Okay.
I need to try it.
Chuy's is Tex-Mex. Chuy's is Tex-Mex, not Mexican. It's Tex-Mex. And I love it because it's from my childhood. It's like the restaurant. It's one of the first Mexican Tex-Mex restaurants I remember my family going to. So it is controversial. Not everybody loves Chuy's. It's better than Taco Bell. There you go. It's better than Taco Bell, and I love it. But Chuy's is my favorite, not necessarily the best.
So Eric, you haven't had Chuy's, have you? Have you tried Chuy's?
I don't think so.
But you do have an opinion on Taco Bell.
Oh yeah.
Which is?
No, this is my ancestors are going to be angry at me. Let's not talk about this.
Oh, not what I was expecting. You're gonna cut this from the podcast, dude. Cut it.
Yeah, no, actually, like I really like it. I'm not going to lie. It's not Mexican food at all. Like, it's not Mexican, but I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Like.
And I think that's what Jessica's saying about Chuy's, right? It's not Mexican, but you like it.
Right.
Yeah. Jessica, do you have one from YouTube over there?
I do. I've got a timely one. We have one about the Not So Scary Halloween Party. Daniel E. Schnauer, 4329, asks, is there a full list of characters you can see at Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party? If so, where can you find it? So the characters for Not So Scary are available in the app, but not until the party starts. So if you're at the party past 7:00 and you go to the app and you choose the geotag icon and you get the map, you can choose characters and you can see a list for all the characters that are out. And that'll give you a pretty good list. If you're wanting to see the characters before you show up that day, you can, on the night of a party, do that and check it out. Or on the Disney Parks blog website, they actually have a posting of, hey, what characters are at the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party? And you simply go to type that into the Disney Parks blog, and it'll list all of the characters and where you can find them, including a list of all the characters that show up in the parade, which you won't find on the app. So what I have found is Disney's Park blog. I know there's a lot of third party, fourth party, other news sites. And I put news in quotes for those of you not watching, but really Disney's official website is usually the most accurate on what is available for you at the party. So that's what I would do. Parks blog or the app during the party.
Yeah. And to clarify, you're talking about that little map marker icon that you would normally tap on if you wanted to see wait times, but you just, instead of wait times, you choose characters.
That's correct. And there's an option on the very bottom right that says show list. And a lot of people miss that. But if you hit characters and then you hit show list, it'll actually just list out all the characters.
Perfect.
So now from Amy, does anyone knows like if Swan Dolphin, can you walk over at the beach club bus?
Yes, if you're at the Swan and Dolphin, you can just walk across and use the buses at the other resorts. They're not going to stop you from getting on the bus transportation. So when we stayed at the Dolphin, that's what we did is we walked to Boardwalk and used their bus transportation.
Yeah, because the Swan and Dolphin buses kind of stink. They don't take you to where the Disney buses take you, which is like right up sort of near the entrance to the park. They're going to take you in Animal Kingdom. It's kind of out in the middle of the parking lot. At Magic Kingdom, it's actually at the Transportation and Ticket Center. So you're not even at the Magic Kingdom when you get dropped off. You're like...
And if you stay and close down Hollywood Studios at Oga's and you get out at way an hour past park and you get there, the Swan and Dolphin buses don't exist. I will just let you know that. We found that out the hard way, is that we had to take the Boardwalk bus back.
Okay.
So...
that's very good to know.
Yeah. So the Swan and Dolphin, the shuttles, I think you said this earlier, the shuttles for the non-Disney parks are shuttles in quotation marks that are not always the best. I've spent more on Uber than I would have on parking at the parks.
I've got a fun one here that is also from the last episode. Junaidan Sari 3467 wants to know what each of our favorite rides are in each park, which I think that's a super fun question. And I'm going to go first. The easiest for me is Animal Kingdom because it's my favorite park and it has my favorite ride in all of Walt Disney World because it is the best ride in all of Walt Disney World, Expedition Everest. At Magic Kingdom, I would say it's Tiana's Bayou Adventure right now, but I'm pretty sure that when Big Thunder reopens, I think that's going to be my new favorite because I'm really excited about the changes that are coming to Big Thunder. Epcot is easy. It's definitely Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, and Hollywood Studios. That's the one I have a really hard time with because there's so many rides I love at Hollywood Studios, but I think I have to give it to Rise of the Resistance. It's such an impressive attraction, and there's just so many levels to that attraction, and it still makes my jaw drop every time I ride it. But an honorable mention goes to Slinky Dog and Tower of Terror and Toy Story Mania and Rock and Roller Coaster. I don't know. I love so many rides at studios. But what about you, Eric? What are your favorite rides in each park?
Okay, Animal Kingdom is going to be Flight of Passage, of course, from Hollywood Studios. I'm between Rise of the Resistance and Tower of Terror. Like those are like my top two, I would say. From Magic Kingdom, without question right now, it's Tiana's Bayou Adventure. And in Epcot, my favorite attraction right now is Remy's.
Wow. Not Guardians. Nice. That was a good surprise there at the end. Jessica, what about you? What are your favorites?
So we're going to get the non-ride person now to give this list. This will be very exciting. We'll start with Animal Kingdom, and it's the Safari. The Safari is the best ride on property. I'll just say Animal Kingdom is my favorite park. Then we will go to Hollywood Studios, where it's obviously Rise of the Resistance. I'm a Star Wars person. I love Star Wars, Rise of the Resistance. Epcot, this is where it's going to get a little dicey. It's going to be Figment, because Journey Through Imagination with Figment is the ride that I love more than anything, because I strongly, strongly believe imagination is the best thing ever. And I love it. And I cry, and my kids know, and we talk about imagination, and I love it.
Even the new version. So
I've loved every version. I will smell a skunk every day for that at Figment. But you're talking to the person who flew a very long way for a one-day meet and greet to show up. So Three Caballeros is my second favorite in that park. I love those both equally. And then when we get to Magic Kingdom, I'm a people mover gal. And if we had allowed attractions and not rides, I'm a tiki room gal. I have rope dropped the tiki room multiple times to be the only person in there, because you can sing very loud when you're alone. So tiki room and people mover at Magic Kingdom every day. So a little bit different list than other people's, but it's my list and I love it.
And you have been known to rope drop It's a Small World.
Yeah, because It's a Small World. If I'm there for early entry, because that's the other thing, early entry for Magic Kingdom on property allows you to only go to Fantasyland. So Tiki Room is off the table. So then I will rope drop It's a Small World, because it's also a great, wonderful ride that should be ridden multiple times. So
nice. What about you, Craig? What are your favorites in each park?
Well, we were just talking about Magic Kingdom. It's a Small World is my number 2. A hard number 2, firm number 2. Love that ride. But I have to say my favorite is Tiana. And before that, it was Splash Mountain. I think because I do love a good dark ride. And I think Splash Mountain / Tiana is just a perfect combination of dark ride and thrill ride. If we're going on to Epcot, then it's Guardians. I mean, that you just feel like you're flying. I've been on tons of coasters, but I've never felt like I was totally flying and totally disoriented. Hollywood Studios, I'm going off of what everyone said. I'm going with Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway. Love that ride. Again, it's a dark ride. The special effects are great. It's funny. There's always something new. As many times as I've ridden it, there's always something new to notice. But I will agree with Jessica on Animal Kingdom, and the Safari is my favorite.
Nice.
It's a different ride every time.
Jessica, do you have a question for us?
Mm-hmm. We've got a Disney Bubble question here from Erica's Enchanted Disney 7629. How do you enter through the front of Epcot instead of the International Gateway if you are staying at a Skyliner or Epcot area resort like Pop Century? So my answer is there are 2 ways. The first way is the freeway, which is I would take the bus to Magic Kingdom, and then you can take the monorail on the TTC to Epcot to get in the front. That's free. It's fun. The monorail's like another ride. So that's a longer trip depending on how you want to do it. And you do have to take 2 monorails, because you're going to get dropped off at Magic Kingdom. So you got to get back to the TTC and then get to Epcot. So it's not an easy thing to do, but it's free. But what I would do is actually just get a minivan or an Uber. I would minivan or Uber, and particularly if you're an Uber, is going to cost you a little bit less, and it's easy. If you really need to go to the front of the park, that's what I would do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I looked into that, and I could not find a better route than what you suggested.
Yeah.
And just because the buses don't run from park to park in the morning, so it was just very difficult to figure out something else. But yeah, and I looked up Uber, and it was like $10-15. I checked a few times, and not too horrible.
Mm-hmm. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Nikki Smith, 8920, wants to know, do you have to buy Lightning Lane MultiPass for 2 parks if you want to use it in both of them? The good news is no. If you buy MultiPass and you have a park hopper ticket, you can bounce from park to park and get your Lightning Lanes. Now, there are caveats. You have to choose your park whatever park you purchase it for, that's where you have to start your day And that's where you have to reserve your first 3 lightning lanes.
And I think that's actually a really huge perk too of Lightning Lane Multipass versus Genie Plus. Because with Genie Plus, if you wanted to use it in multiple parks, you had to pay a much higher price. Well, unless you're at Magic Kingdom, then it was usually the same price. But for any other park, you were essentially paying the Magic Kingdom price for Lightning Lane to use it in other parks. Whereas now you can get it in any park and use it everywhere once you tap in, like Craig said. So here's actually another follow-up from a question we had in the last episode. Kate Shields 5670 asks, how do you amend the Lightning Lane reservation for someone who is unable to ride the attraction if it has 2 tap-in points like Space Mountain? What if it is the first attraction of the day and you need to tap in to unlock that person? So we talked about this in the last episode, and we said that if the attraction doesn't have 2 tap-in points, that person could just tap in and not ride, right? And that clears out their Lightning Lane so that they can book something else with the rest of the group. But we did mention that there were rides like Space Mountain is a good example where there are 2 tap-in points. There's one at the entrance to the ride, and there's another one right before you're going to board. And if you don't tap in at that second tap-in point, it actually doesn't unlock you. So it doesn't, redeem the Lightning Lane until you get to that second tap-in point. So what's important, if you're going to do this just tap-in method, you have to ask the cast member, is there another tap-in point inside? If there is, sometimes that cast member can redeem it for you, but in most cases, you're going to have to go to a blue umbrella, which is guest services, and explain the situation that it's their first ride of the day and someone can't or chooses not to ride that attraction, but they're there. They're physically there. They're just not riding it. They will redeem that for you, and it unlocks just as if you rode it. Now, this only matters for your first ride of the day. If it's not your first ride, if you've already quote unquote unlocked, which is that thing that Craig was talking about earlier, once you tap in at that first attraction, it lets you book in other parks. It lets you have multiple tier 1 attractions. If you've unlocked already, you can just cancel that person from the Lightning Lane. It's really easy to do. You just go in and hit the cancel button, and don't worry, it's not going to cancel for everyone. It's going to ask you who you want to cancel for, and you can choose just that person who doesn't want to ride. But if it is your first ride, though, you're probably going to need to go to guest relations and have them redeem it for you. Jessica, you got another one for us?
Yep. Another Disney Bubble question, and this one is Alul1 wants to know, what is a good extending evening hours strategy for Magic Kingdom? Should you take a break in the middle of the day? How do you choose which rides to save for later? So I think the first answer is taking a break in the middle of the day, particularly in the summer, is always a good idea for extended evening hours, even if it's not extended evening hours. It's hot. It's a good time to take a break. It's super sunny. The only issue I will say is now it's a 2:00 Festival of Fantasy, not a 3:00 Festival of Fantasy, a 2:00 Festival of Fantasy parade. You should see that, and then you should take a break. That's what we did last week. And then as far as which rides to save for later, that's just personal preference. I mean, if you didn't get the Lightning Lanes and you want to take the rides that have the long lines, I've heard though riding Tron at night, it might take up your entire extended evening hours. So Tron at night is amazing. I've gotten to do it one time at night. I was able to get a Lightning Lane, and it is to me, a better experience at night than it is during the day. It was more fun. But if you're saving that one, it might take up your entire extra extended evening hours. So it's kind of personal preference as to why you're going to extended evening hours. I will say a lot of the food is closed. A lot of the other stuff is closed. So Tiana's, Tron, Seven Dwarves, you're not going to get to do all 3 of those in the extended evening hours. So I would pick the one that you maybe want to do and focus on that. Now, you could do It's a Small World 8 or 9 times. That's also an option. I just want to throw that out there. People Mover, you could stay on. Did you know you could stay on the People Mover? You don't have to get off. You sit on the People Mover and you just say, I want to go around again. They will never kick you off until it's the end of the night. So those are also options. But a real answer is personal preference. but Tron at night really is cool, but that might be your whole extended evening hours.
Yeah. I would add with Tiana, that one is actually typically dead for extended
is it?
evening
Okay.
hours. Yeah, because people want to do that one when it's hot, and they don't want to be when
Wet.
it's cooler at night. They don't want to be wet and chilly. So that's the downside to doing Tianas in extended evening hours is you may get wet and you might get chilly, but it's usually a very short wait. I always loved doing, for me, I always loved doing Big Thunder Mountain in extended evening hours was a good one. Mine Train is still going to have a wait, but it's not nearly as bad as it is during the day typically. So that can be a good one. But I agree with you. Tron is the inverse of Tiana's. If nighttime is a bad time to do Tiana's, like you said, it's the perfect time to do Tron. It's just slammed usually during extended evening hours. So take that into your planning. Do you have any favorites that you like to do during extended evening hours, Craig?
Oh, I've never done them at Magic Kingdom, but at Epcot. So one of my favorite tips was to watch Luminous. Sorry.
Luminous.
I knew it. Was like, which one is it? Luminous. And I watched it from Norway. And as soon as it was over, I turned around and got right on to Frozen Ever After because there was only a few people in line. And the only people, when Luminous starts, basically no one can get into any of the lines unless they're staying at a deluxe resort.
So that's one of the best things to do for extended evening hours. If you haven't done Frozen yet, that's the perfect way to get on with almost no wait. Craig, you got another question for us?
I do. I have a question. It's kind of related to what we were talking about today, actually, specifically the price portion of the discussion. Greenville guy asks, with prices going up faster than most people's salaries, do you think Disney would be better off eliminating the fluctuating date-based pricing that they currently have for tickets? Wouldn't it generate a lot of goodwill to have a Disney one-day, one-park ticket, always $130 approach? Yeah, I think it would create a lot of goodwill. I think the question is Disney really care about their goodwill when it comes to pricing? I just don't think they're ever going to change it at this point. With the seasons, you've got high seasons, low seasons. I remember back in the 90s, they basically advertised it as the longer you stay, the less you pay per day, which is what they still are doing. And I don't see them ever backing off of that anytime soon.
I would actually add, too, that I think in addition to it being good for Disney's bank account to have the fluctuating pricing, it's actually done something else really effectively. And that is there used to be the slow seasons where it was you could plan to go to Disney World and it was dead. And then there were the high seasons like Christmas where you were going to pay a fortune and it was going to be jam-packed with people. And they use the ticket price to try to kind of adjust demand to bring the crowd level down a little bit sometimes during the holiday season and bring it up more during the off season. And they've been very effective. A lot of people come and they're like, the crowd calendar said it was going to be dead and it's completely slammed. What's going on? That's the magic of Disney's fluctuating prices. That's what they've caused to happen is that people, not only do they know they're going to pay less, they're expecting that it's going to be a lower crowd level, and not always the case, but those two things I think entice people to come during the slower seasons. And that's why I think Disney won't get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And back in the 90s, I had a friend, who worked in Disney IT, and he was part of the whole Destination Disney back in the 90s. And basically this is during when Michael Eisner was in charge. The whole idea was to try to get people to stay on property longer. That's why they opened another theme park. That's why they kept expanding. That's why they added more hotels. That's why they had Magical Express, which was a free bus transportation from the airport to take you right to your resort. And obviously things have just blown up since the 90s. So it's been a good business model for them. I don't see them changing it anytime soon.
Here's one from one of our longtime viewers over on YouTube, who's now also part of our Patreon family. Michwell was watching our Epcot early entry video and says, quote, I was glad to see that there was no wrong choice between starting with Guardians of the Galaxy or Test Track. What about for regular entry? Would it be better to start with one versus the other? So in our early entry video coming in from the front of the park, we found that you were a little bit better off with Guardians of the Galaxy, but that was mainly because Test Track is so unreliable at opening. Test Track is also affected by weather. And that would actually be my answer to this question is it really depends on what's going on with Test Track. If Test Track has been running since early entry began and it's running smoothly and there's no weather, you may find that Test Track has a shorter wait than Guardians, in which case I would say start there for two reasons. One, it's better to get that shorter wait first thing in the morning because then you can get in another line that's still shorter in the morning. But number two, and more importantly, because Test Track goes down for weather, the sooner you can get that ride done. If it's on your must-do, do it because Guardians isn't going to be affected by weather. Most of the attractions in Epcot are not affected by weather. Test Track is really the only big ticket attraction that goes down for weather. So I would say start there if it's functioning normally and it doesn't have some insane, wait that's even longer than Guardians. Craig, you got another one for us?
I do. I got an interesting one here from Robert Spangers 7888, who asks, do you know why Animal Kingdom doesn't remain open later so you can see Pandora, Tree of Life, and Everest during sunset and in the dark? I understand they closed the animal exhibits early, but couldn't they have the other parts open late? That's actually a very good question. And I remember they used to stay open a lot later. And then when they had the Rivers of Light show, and to be honest, I don't really have a good answer as far as why they don't. I have a feel now. I will have a tip. Like if you go during the winter months, you'll have more evening hours. And I think once Tropical Americas opens, at least you'll have more to do, and that might, keep it open later without having to disrupt the animals. But yeah, I'd like to hear other thoughts on this too.
So I remember coming before the pandemic, we did a nighttime safari.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't even close the animal exhibits early. The safari was running. In fact, there's an episode of The Magic of Disney's Animal Kingdom on Disney Plus where you see the Imagineers are developing lighting that's disguised as trees on the savannah for that very reason. I mean, so there was always a plan. Think about it. Think about Pandora and how beautiful that area is at night.
Mm-hmm.
The safari planning that we talked about. I obviously don't know because Disney doesn't share this information publicly, but my guess is they just don't have the attendance numbers to justify the cost of keeping the cast there, later in the night. They do extend the hours later during the busiest times of the year, but even then, not every day. It's kind of hit or miss. Usually it's more like on Fridays and Saturdays, you'll find it open later. But I think you hit on the right answer there, Craig, which is once they open Tropical Americas, I am hopeful that's going to drive enough traffic to Animal Kingdom to incentivize them to stay open late again, because man, that's the best time to be there. I love being at Animal Kingdom at night. Well, speaking of things being late, we're actually running late ourselves, and unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions this week. But if you still have questions, let us know in the comments on one of our Ear Scouts videos on YouTube, or join us live at patreon.com/Ear Scouts. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can hear the answer if we're able to include it. Before we go, however, we have one last segment that we like to call Happy Thoughts, where we share a little thing that made us happy this week before we call it a night. Jessica, why don't you start us off this week? What is your happy thought?
Well, as you guys know, I spent last week in Disney World with my family, my mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, and that's a pretty happy thought. But I will add to it that during our stay, we had the most magical experience with cast members. I shouted out Joe earlier, but I also want to shout out Philip from the Photo Pass on Magic Kingdom. So Eric may know him. I don't know. But my dad had a little fall, which is everything's fine. Everything's good. But we saw Philip right after that, and he made what could have been, it made it better. So shout out to him. Shout out to the cast members. Everybody at Magic Kingdom that day just took what could have been a bad day and turned it around for us. So it really is all about the cast members. And Eric, if you know Philip, you can tell him he's mentioned on the podcast. So he did a great job.
Awesome. Eric, what's your happy thought this week?
So I just wanted to follow up with you, Jessica. Like, thank you so much for saying that about Philip. Like, he's a great cast member. He always like makes sure that everyone has a great experience. So I'm glad that he made things better for you and your family. Now, just as a reminder, like you can always give cast compliments to the cast members.
Yeah, and I did put a cast compliment in also, which is a great thing to do, and people need to remember to do that.
That's a great happy thought. And that's a happy thought that you can take with you to your next trip to Disney World. Craig, what's your happy thought this week?
Okay, well, my happy thought just happened today, and it's not necessarily Disney based, but it's about family. My father turned 94 years
Wow.
old today.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's still kicking. We live on the same street. My sister lives next door. We had dinner over there. He still lives by himself. He's got his wonderful little dog that takes care of him as much as he takes care of her. But at dinner, I asked him. No, so he used to work for the Selmer Company. And so did his father, and they made band instruments, woodwinds, clarinets, saxophones mostly. So I asked him, I was like, what are you most proud of in your career? Because he worked his entire life there along with his father. He had so many good ones, but he worked on Benny Goodman's horn. Like Benny Goodman, the famous big band clarinetist, would bring his horn here to Elkhart, Indiana, and my dad is the one who repaired it. He was the one that was entrusted with his horn, and several other very famous musicians. So yeah, this is for Dad. This is for all the dads, all the parents out there. So that's my happy.
I love this. We both of your happy thoughts are related to Dad. That's pretty cool. Mine is not related to Dad, but my happy thought this week comes from we went to Destination D23 weekend before last. Was Destination D23. And there was one thing that you might not have even heard about because it wasn't one of the big newsy items that came from D23, but it was the one that made me the most excited. So there's this documentary you can watch on Disney Plus called The Imagineering Story. And it was created by the amazing documentarian. Her name is Leslie Iwerks. And she's the granddaughter of Ub Iwerks, who created Mickey Mouse. She drew the first Mickey Mouse. And she's the daughter. Her father actually created the camera arrays that they use to make the Circle Vision films in Epcot and other parks around the world. So he's a legendary Imagineer. So she kind of has this perspective on Imagineering and Disney that no one else can have. You know, I mean, she comes from a family of Disney legends, and she just grew up in that world. And so the Imagineering Story, if you haven't seen it, put it on your must-watch list. But my happy thought is that she was at Destination D23 and announced that there's a new documentary about the creation of Disneyland that she's finishing up. Is going to be on Disney Plus this winter, and just in time for the 70th anniversary celebration, which is going on this year at Disneyland. I can't wait to see it because we did so much research about Disneyland as we prepared to go for the 70th, and there's so many great stories, and I know she's going to have even more great stories that we haven't heard before. So that's my happy thought. That's what I'm super excited about. And that is all the happy thoughts we have time for, but we will be back with a new episode every other week. So be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Until then, don't forget to think happy thoughts, everybody. We'll see you again real soon.